Today we're going to see how to use the Mac program PPRNG. There's going to be three things that we'll look at. The first is the calibration of the program with the DS. The second will be just catching any Pokemon to make sure it's set correctly. And then finally capture Tornadus, the first of the genies. As you can see here, you don't necessarily need a Mac in order to run this, but you can run it inside a virtual machine. The first thing we're going to do here is enter a few basic parameters from your game card. To start, we want to jump into the DS game config and set up a new profile here. I've already got one exist, but I'll do a new one for this video. You'll see the DS shown here, and this will show you exactly where to find this information. First, pick out the version that you are using, in this case Black 2. And the first piece of information we need is the MAC address. This is found inside the Nintendo WFC connections. Tap Options, then System Information, and there's your MAC address. Type it exactly as it's seen. Next, we want to mark whether the memory link has been used. That's any time you've connected with Black 1 or 2 via the special option. And if you have the shiny charm, make sure to tick the box there too. The next thing we need to look for is the trainer ID. The secret ID is not necessary unless you want to look for a shiny. But with the Dream Radar, that's impossible, so we won't worry about that. To find it, start up your game, open the main menu, then choose your trainer card. Once that's open, flip it over to reveal the trainer ID on the back. This is all we can enter for now, since we need to figure out what timer, V count and V frame we have by searching for the Dream Radar parameters. To do this, you want to jump into the Dream Radar parameter searcher. That's down in the middle column on the bottom. In this example, I've chosen to keep using the same time to make sure that's one less factor that's different. So I've chosen my time here, just based on the current day, and I'm just going to set up the DS to the same time. While testing, you can also try holding different buttons to see if that gives you a better timer, or another timer that is easier to hit, but I won't be showing how to use them in this video. Basically, you just hold the button down until you see the star appear in the opening intro to activate the button. And with the time set, what you want to do is as soon as the timer hits the 20-second mark, in this case, press the A button. To test, jump into your Nova link, key, and then send and receive keys. Now what you want to look for is down in the lower right corner which direction the spinner starts at. That is what we need to type into the PPRNG in order to search for our seed. This needs to be done a minimum of 7 times, but you may need to do a couple more just to filter out the extra results. Okay, click search to see what seeds you hit, and we can see that I actually hit 4 different seeds, so I just need to add another arrow, search again, and there we go, that got rid of the others. So 1103 is the answer I got here. And what you want to do is take note of this on a bit of paper, because there's going to be a few different results that we hit, and what we want to do is find the most common one. Now you'll want to repeat this calibration process at least 10 times. That way you get a clearer picture of what you're aiming for. Now you always want to keep putting in extra arrows until you get a single result. Now we can see here already I've gotten a different one, this time 1106, so I want to take note of that. One thing that I didn't write down though was the V count and V frame, but they're the same in every result that I got, so that doesn't matter in the end. And yet again we can see another result. So of course you just keep noting these and keep going until you get something that really stands out. Okay, I've skipped a little bit of the video and we can see very shortly that I've managed to note down quite a few. Now there's a bit of trend happening here, especially with this 1108, in that I've got about 4 entries that are very close together. Now it probably wouldn't be too much of a problem if I even set the minimum and max as appropriate to cover those 4, but I'm just going to aim for 1106. Which happens to have the most by just 1. That's going to be my starting point, and what I'll do is I'll keep recording which timers I get during my capture test. So input the timer details, the V count and the V frame. The V count and V frame for me were the same every single time. After you set the edit button, for some reason this goes back to the original if you had a different profile. With our parameters now set, we no longer need this window. Close that and head to the Dream Radar Seed Searcher. What we want to do here is set up something so we can go searching and try and see if we can hit our seed to confirm that we can, and to get a bit of practice in. Leave it as non-legendary as a female, and just set a time range, something a bit modest. Doesn't have to be too much, just to do a quick search. We're not looking for anything perfect here, we just want to get a result. Make sure that you have something to send through on your DS. If you don't, go through and capture something like I do here, and then we'll go searching for the seed and try and hit it. It won't matter if you send through multiple Pokemon, as long as you got at least one, you can try and hit the seed. Now that I have some Pokemon to send through, I want to swap the cards over and put Black 2 in, as I'm using a DS Lite to do the calibration and hit the seeds. Just be sure to turn it off before you eject the card though. It's fine to leave the Dream Radar at the menu, that won't hurt the card at all. Just send them through. This isn't the point where we hit the seed, we hit it back on the DS Lite. We didn't go searching for a seed before, so just put in some quick parameters. I didn't even worry about nature in this case, I just want to hit something that I know I can recognise. With the frame, I prefer myself to set it up a little higher, so I'm only searching frames that I know I have hit. And just pluck something out. Double click it and that'll open up the seed inspector. And this helps you search for it and gives you all the parameters you need for the DS. So make sure that you set it up with the correct date and the correct time, and then you can begin hitting the seed, or trying to hit it at least. Now my seed happens on the 15-second mark, so I have not got much time here. If you notice during your calibration, you've actually got to hit it a second before to hit the correct seed second. So in this case I'm hitting it on second 14. Now you'll see here I switched over to adjacents. You want to generate that, and what that does is it looks for all the seeds around it which you are likely to hit. Advancing the frame and checking if you hit the correct seed is very easy. Hop into send and receive keys again as you did during the calibration. Look towards the lower right and take note of all the arrows you hit. If you've generated a list and you start clicking them, you can see what seeds you have actually hit each time you press it. The list will move through and pick out the correct seed. You see in this example I hit the 1106 seed. One thing to note here is that while it was the right seed, as far as the timer goes, I was too late on hitting the A button, so I've got to keep trying again. One thing you may have noticed is I was still noting down which seeds I was hitting. Keep doing this, at least when you're first trying to get things sorted out, as this way you can start to see if there is a bit of a trend that wasn't, well, you couldn't see in the first testing phase. This way you can start to refine your settings a little more and get something that's a bit more accurate. As you can see here, 1106 is just not working for me, so I'm going to switch it over to 1104, which I seem to be hitting quite a bit now. So switch over your settings, you'll see it flicks at the top, and then just search again and pick out a different seed. As before, it'll show you the different DS parameters to set at the top. So set up your DS and jump into the adjacent seeds and generate again. Now I did a few more runs here before I eventually did hit the seed. So pretty much you just have to keep trying until you do get there. This attempt here is my successful attempt. Once you recognize it, switch it over to frames mode, find your position, and then move down the list as you hit each sequence. Each time you hit one, you should see the symbol start in the same direction as what's shown on the left in the spinner column. Just keep moving, and each time you see the same one line up, press down on your keyboard, and that keeps everything simple. Just every now and then have a quick look, make sure you're not going to overshoot it too far, and once you hit the correct position or frame, then you may receive the Pokémon. Okay, I've reached the correct frame. Now what I need to do is carefully exit out of this menu, but not go too far to reset the game. Head down to the 3DS link, receive the data, and that will save the Pokemon directly into your box. So what I should see when I start up the game is a hasty Swablu with pretty high stats in all areas but attack. After receiving, head towards your PC box in the current box to find the Pokémon that you just downloaded. And there's the hasty Swablu, so nature's right. And just using this IV checker, we could just get solid confirmation that the IVs are indeed exactly as they were in PPRNG. And there, that marks it. So now that we're able to use the RNG, we'll be able to repeat this process for capturing the first of the genies, Tornadus. When it comes time to capture one of the genies, you want to make sure it's going to be the only one that you are sending across to the game. If you don't, you may get the slot mixed up, or if you're sending multiple genies, find it very hard to try and get the IVs correct for both or all three. It just keeps things simpler this way. Like before, just set up all the parameters, say your nature, the IVs, and if you want it, the hidden power, and of course the date range. The date you send across the genie is the date that it will be received on its information page. I'm a bit of a stickler for the dates, making sure that it's pretty much around the time that I actually did capture it, so I tend to be a little more lenient than some with the IVs, but you can customize this to whatever you want. Make sure at the top when you're searching as before that you have the correct preferences for your DS. I had two results there, one for timid and one for naive. I'm going with naive so I can use something like aerobatics, or have the option to use it. I had also found in my previous captures that 1103 had actually become more common and have started using it alongside 1104 for the timer. Just like your previous test captures, just open up Dream Radar, have your game in, and then select transfer. Just make sure that the genie, as said before, is the only one, and send it through. So you want to avoid playing again to capture other Pokemon. Once that's done and back at the title screen, you can pull out the game and place it into your DS that it's calibrated to, if you're using a different DS, and attempt to hit your seed. The only real difference between capturing a genie and capturing a standard Pokemon is to make sure that you set the type to genie, otherwise you would have it as just the ordinary settings as before. All the steps, including searching for the seed, setting the time, everything, is pretty much identical. Just to speed things up, I'm just going to fast forward through this. This seed is starting to look good. It's mashed up with the correct time, and the sequence is so far the same, so I'm going to switch to the frames. And just as before, I'm just going to select where I'm up to and then tap down on the keyboard as I make my way through the list. And that's the last one. Now that I've reached the seed, what I want to do is go back out the menu just one step, go to 3DS link, and save the genie to the box. You always want to be sure that you did hit the right seed, obviously in this case yes, as you only have one try at this. And there it is, the naive Tornadus with all the stats intact. Exactly as predicted by the PPRNG. We can see here that running it through a quick check on an IV calculator confirms the IVs are all good. Exactly as predicted. That wraps up this video on how to use the RNG prediction with the Dream Radar.